Hello, good evening. Nice to see you. My name's Brian Decadonuwin, and this is Bubble Tea Time, where we spill the tea on next week's games, or last week's games, and set the table for next week, this week.
Man,
Um,
imagine being psychic.
Joining me, Daniel Diaz Andrade,
Hello.
Chase Pentamaster Hunt,
Hello.
and James Satan Sataniel,
We'll get it clear
whatever.
today.
This
Yeah,
is James today. We're just gonna.
Yeah, let's just stick with
James,
James. It works
James
better.
Dowdle. Okay, what's up? How's it going, James?
Doing well. Excited to be here. Repping good old TSC on BTT, and excited to have a chat with the boys and see what we're thinking about next week.
Yeah, I'm ready for some hardcore jungle analysis. So, speaking of hardcore jungle analysis, let's just hop right into it with our match recap. Speaking of junglers, we have B Gang versus GB, which was a B Gang victory, their second of this of the BTL season. So super excited for that. And speaking of the jungle, I mean Caribou had a pretty outsized impact in this one. Can we walk through this clip, Chase, and um, tell me what you see here, and tell me what you see in the entire game, B Gang versus GB.
Yeah. So I mean, in this clip, this fight felt like kind of just disjointed in a sense. Felt like it was just like back and forth, and then it just ended up with being like securing or like keeping the Herald, or I guess keeping them off. But yeah, I mean, it was like it looked really well for uh I'm blanking on it. GB, and
Voice?
then they just like didn't really go for the Herald, and I was kind of lost there. But then after that, I think there was probably calls to fight, and then there were calls not to fight, and it was like I said, just like really disjointed, and then like trying to walk away with all those kills, and it was like it was pretty detrimental. I mean, they get the Rift Herald without like really being contested for it, and then Trundle gets free kills pretty much. So pretty rough for GB after that.
Yeah, I mean that fight was pretty strange. Like Nikolai died off the cuff, really,
Mhm.
but they still let the Herald go down, and then the rest of the fight ended up going negatively for them, even though I had Steven join the fight after Nikolai was dead. Do you think that's just like symptomatic of this game, or is this something that GB has happened to them a lot, just like a little bit of maybe a lack of communication, or
I mean, I think it's just like inherent with GB. I think that they haven't had like enough consistency to really like get through that in a sense. I mean, their games are super coin flip, which is like cool to watch. Yeah, their games are like always entertaining, but like it's back and forth, and like you don't really know if they're gonna like secure a lead and then hold it, or if they're going to flop and then just like come back and destroy everybody. I mean, it's just like more often than not, they don't seem to have that like integrated team synergy. Just
Mhm.
completely down yet.
Yeah, I mean, I think the league has always seen GB as a team with like, especially at the start of the split or start of the I guess BTL season, where um, the preseason power rankings came out and everything. I think a lot of people viewed them as having a lot of upside. I think they're just having some trouble realizing the pure talent upside that they have. So, I guess my final question then is, Chase, are you willing to offer therapy to GB for like a discounted rate, just to make sure they can all get
Mm.
along and all play together as a one happy family?
You know, just this one time, and it's only like 5% off. All right, and so
Only 5% off? Man,
yeah. I mean,
gotta
look,
make a living.
I gotta make money somehow, you know.
Yeah, it's definitely not off of wins yourself. All right. Speaking of,
Oh, it
actually,
hurts.
that was the last game. Actually, this was a hit. So, whoops, my bad. All right, let's go EXO versus MBB for our next clip. We'll let our shiny new analyst James
Oh
run us
boy.
through this clip and run us through this game. What's going on, James?
So before this play, Sona actually got killed bottom lane. So MBB thinks they have a push, and Nishant goes in to try and clear Krugs on that, but turns out his bot lane wasn't able to crash the wave soon enough. And EXO's bot lane gets back as well as two hands, so they're able to counter this. And then Vid the mid had push in mid lane almost the entire game. He comes down bot, and as we're going to see throughout the rest of the clip, gets a double here onto their bottom lane, and then after this play, he's going to shove out mid lane in a few minutes at most and roam bot and get another double. And at that point, the brand is just so off the ground that even if they engaged onto him, which happened a handful of times, they were able to, get on top of the brand. He didn't die immediately. He had enough HP through Leandries and his demonic embrace. He pressed R and won fights just straight up by pressing that ult button. But I think that roam was kind of systemic of MBB wasn't able to get the push where they thought they had it, and EXO collapsed on that mistake and got fit ahead.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, I think one of the most striking things about XO is just how they draft their comps. Are probably the most experimental, I guess, of any BTL team. They've had they had John and Top Smite games. They've had this game with the Seraphine Sona bot lane. Like, it's not stuff that is necessarily like super foreign. You've seen it in pro like once or twice, that kind of thing. But they're the ones that are willing to kind of go out on a limb and try something different that doesn't super fit the meta like everybody else does. How beneficial do you think that is for them? Does it give them like an extra edge in draft where nobody can predict them whatsoever? So it's like caution to the wind, like hope we play or diff them, or
I think it's a huge. Yeah. I think it's a huge element of their gameplay, and that like when we were looking in playing EXO, Mian was sort of the one we were kind of pinning out as we got to make sure he doesn't get off the ground. But in this case, locking in the Sona Seraphine and then running the jungle Kindred, it's just like they're kind of swapping their hand and saying, okay, we're going to be playing through this Kindred mid to late, and we're going to enable him with these two enchanters, and then Vid obviously just like has a swath of picks that if he gets any of them is particularly comfortable. So it's just sort of like being able to play through multiple people makes your team less predictable, and especially as we get to best of threes and playoffs, feel like it will allow them to, if they lose game one of a series, they're going to be able to bounce back in game two potentially with a completely different composition, and that'll throw teams off if they're like, wait, how am I supposed to play against the Sona Seraphine? We haven't played against that all season. And I think it's a huge edge for them going into the the playoff series.
I would like to add that Two Hands has yet to play repeating junglers. It's 7 games now?
Yep.
All different junglers, including the Janna Top himself.
Nice. Yeah, I think EXO sitting at 3 and 4 now are really in the mix for that top 6 spot. There's a bunch of teams sitting at 3 and 4, and the next few weeks will be pretty critical for mapping out like the full playoff picture. Who's going to the second bracket? I guess the upper bracket, and who's going down to the lower bracket. So EXO is definitely on the cusp, and they have a shot. All right. Speaking of teams with a shot in that bucket, there's TSC versus THD, which was a game that would have decided the middle of the bracket, and decided it did. TSC came away with the victory. James, once again, let's walk through the clip and then talk TSC THD.
So preempting this play, we actually had gotten a shove top with Herald, and Malphite blew ult, which actually had killed Matt on Xayah. But we know Malphite ult's down, so we're warding aggressively to prepare for the dragon, and so a lot of their team fight potential is gone, and we're just like, we can take this fight. We're up 2k. Knock ulti comes down to blind them, and I think this was huge for allowing the Sylas to get a massive Diana ult. Because between that, the Kayle visuals and all the other things going on, it was very difficult to see the Sylas popping the Diana ult. And with our gold lead and kind of knowing the biggest team fight threat THD had, it was like, this is a pretty secure play for us to take. And luckily, I think it panned out despite the fact that the huge Kayle ult nearly turned the fight. But yeah, I think that was just kind of gold lead and knowing we were in a better position compositionally to take that fight at that time.
Nice. How critical is this game for you guys to win? Because you guys are like on the upper side of the mid bracket clusterfuck, and we were on the lower side of this. Yeah. So like, did that affect how much you planned for this game beforehand, or anything like that, or is it just kind of like another day in the office for you?
I think ever since we lost to DD a week or two ago, we've been definitely kind of on a okay, we need to get our shit together streak, because we had lethal that game and then threw it in the dumpster. And so I think we kind of realized, okay, we beat SB, and kind of our thought going into playoffs or going into the end of the season was, if we stay tied with SB AR going into the final games, we can beat them out on tiebreakers. Mm-hmm. But now that we dropped that game, it's sort of like, if we want to get that playoff bye, every game does matter, especially since now our next head-to-head will be against AR, our last game of the season. And so making sure that we're not dropping any extraneous games leading up to that, I think is pretty big. And also I think for just confidence boost kind of going into playoffs with that bye and knowing the other like top 2 or 3 teams we've beaten would be a really good confidence boost. So in terms of prepping, I don't think we prepped any differently for THD, but I do think it was just in terms of mentality coming in, being a little more focused and aware of what we had to do to get that across the finish line before the KO and other things could come online.
Gotcha. Speaking of the 2 other competitive teams at the top, Deep Dive and AR, they haven't played their game yet. They will, but we can't recap the game that hasn't happened. Who knew? So we'll recap the final one that I gave Pentamaster some shit on earlier today. Whoops. Earlier this BTT. But PO versus SB ended up an SB win. Speaking of SB, Dan's give me a heads up. Once again, like always, how SB wins every game.
I mean,
against Kissy, so James on you already.
Yeah. I mean, here overall, we see a tower dive going on mid, and Angela just has the fancy feet here, honestly. Able to like just stall out with the root, and from Victor gets the kill, and then eventually, Misa and I come back in to clean up, making a 2-for-1 overall. And lately, it's been feeling really good to play with Misa. Like we're back in an old brother synergy when we used to duo a lot. It's been pretty fun. And
that insinuates that it wasn't fun before.
You know, it's the brother nerf thing, man. You're like, we both literally nerf each other, and we just want to play well with each other, and it's been feeling great.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, you guys are on a ridiculous hot streak right now on SB. It's been that one game against TSC, which James will never let you live down, and then every other game since. So, you know, I guess the sky is yours for the taking, and the ground is pretty far away. Even though you have a two games coming up that could test you, Deep Dive, and then maybe THD depending on the coin flip, I guess. But I guess. Until then, I mean, SB is a clear front runner, and nobody's really touched them ever since week 1. So we'll see if that can continue into playoffs, and we'll see if the curse takes into
effect. I've got the looming curse of first place hovering over me right now.
It's been what? This is season 8. In 7 seasons of BTL play, a first place regular season team has never won the championship ever. So we'll see if SB is the first, or if TSC maybe throws a wrench in there, comes in second seed and wins. That happens.
That's the plan.
Not so much. All right. Let's move on to Dan's stats. Now that we've hit 4 out of our 5 games, the 4 possible, I guess, to review.
So
got Savory versus Mayan, THC versus EXO.
So I wanted to highlight a match that has heavy playoff implications, and didn't want to just not leave my favorite matchup for next week of TSC versus AR. But overall,
TSC versus GB, because TSC does not play AR next match.
Is it
next week?
No. Next week. That's if you can.
Like
my next week fan stats for sure. Heads up! Spoiler warning. It is gonna be a TSC AR, but we're not there yet. So we're talking about THD and EXO, and I was looking at the gameplay and the numbers, and these AD carries are just role players for their team. They don't necessarily need to get ahead to carry a game, but they can. And I just wanted to shout out to my boy Eddie Savory, who I played with last season. And overall, I think this match is going to have such heavy playoff implications. We couldn't just leave it in the dark.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, both these teams are sitting at 3 and 4. The reality of it is that if one of these teams wins here, they potentially guarantee themselves a top 6 spot. Specifically, honestly, THD, or I guess my team, if we win, we have the head-to-head against Pio, who's sitting at 3 and 4. We also have the head-to-head against GB, who's sitting at 3 and 4. And we beat XO, we also have the head-to-head against XO, sitting at 3 and 4. So for THD, it's obviously a pretty critical game. If we win this one, we have the head-to-head against pretty much everybody that would contest us. for a top 6 spot, so it's pretty much a guarantee. EXO doesn't have necessarily that slate of head-to-heads, but it's also pretty big for them, considering their last 2 matches are I guess, more winnable matches than ours, even though we're looking to win ours too. They have B Gang as their last game, whereas we have SB. So for both of these teams, this head-to-head against THD EXO is a pretty must-win match. We'll see some sparks fly for sure in this one, and Eddie and Savory and Man will probably be a pivotal match. All right, let's move on to predictions, so we don't waste our time speaking about EXO THD. Here we can do it. There. Let's start with PO versus B Gang. It's 4-1 for PO. Luckily, there is a 1 for B Gang, but I do not believe Walker is here to protect his B. Wait, is that Walker? Who is that?
No, it's
Walker's Teletubby. Coco's
why
the
is
Ace
Coco?
Soul.
Why didn't you just have his face? I don't even know what that is. From this
It's
distance, I
Ace
can't even
Soul
tell.
Photoshop, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
A-Soul in a suit.
Yeah,
Jesus
Ace Soul in a
Christ.
suit.
All right, whatever. He can't protect himself either. So I guess give me the PO. Why PO is gonna take this one, James? You're over there.
Well, PO is one of the 2 teams that have beaten us this season, so that automatically gives them a little bit of an edge in my book. But I think PO has had some pretty stellar early games in the last handful of games. I think missing Matthew in a few games has definitely kind of hurt them a little bit in a few of the matchups they've had. But I think hopefully if he's the head of Megazord Prime or whatever, and if he's back, they'll be able to kind of take some of those early game advantages that I know Chase here has been setting up. Like the Thresh game we had a few 1 or 2 weeks ago was just honestly unbelievable, setting up plays and kind of converting some of that. And so I think that's something that B is also a good early game team. We got smacked by them in the early game, but I actually think PO will be able to pull it out if they've got all the pieces of Exodia back together.
Nice. Dan's, why is B Gang gonna be able to put up a fight here? Put up a real fight. I mean, they're fresh off a win. That's one thing.
That's one thing. They've got momentum build up, and I think that as we were talking to Walker last week, and he said that they're getting their pieces together finally, and we saw it. Like Walker went down 0-3 and was able to come back into that game. So my advice is don't let Walker go 0-3. That is the scariest Walker.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's go to TSC versus GB. We have a bunch of TSC voters here and 1 GB vote. You know we have to call on you for that one, Chase.
Yeah.
GBY.
See, okay, look, I was saying it before. It's a coin flip team, okay, and I think it's gonna flip the right way for them this time. I might have done this because of value again, but hey, you know, it may. I mean, honestly, like to be fair, I don't think you can count GB out, right? The ceiling on their team is kind of insane. They have mechanical gods in their team. And when they are on it, I mean, they look incredible. I mean, there's a reason why they were predicted to be one of like the strongest teams in the league, like preseason, right? It's just because like the sheer mechanical skill they have on their team. And I mean, I'm guessing Plo will probably go wherever Stevens goes. That just makes sense, but which would be a really interesting matchup. I think Plo versus Steven would be it'd be pretty good. And then I don't know. I feel like bot lanes are, all right, and then the jungle will be like, I think honestly like it would probably be a jungle game. If jungle on either team pops off, then probably seal the deal. But I do think that like if GB is like on it, they can take it home pretty easily. They just got to either like hold the lead or get like come back later. I don't think they can. No, my bad. They got to close the game out or they got to win it late game. That's that's what they got to do.
James isn't gonna let either of those things come to fruition, right? Like you're definitely not gonna open the door for GB. How are you gonna shut it on them?
We've got some ideas in the works of how to play against GB. Whether or not that's we swap PJ and hopefully Colin around the map, or how I plan on shutting down Landry entirely. That is still kind of up in the air. It's in a little bit of flux right now, but I think we have then they have versatility too. Like that's what I'm hoping is that we're talking about. Do we swap PJ into Steven? Do they swap Steven into PJ and send Javi top? Right? Like they've done that before, and so it's sort of like both teams have a lot of versatility and where they can play mid top, and it'll be interesting to see like if either team tries to mind game the other, or if we just both go into it rosters as lined up and play it out that way. But we've got some ideas, particularly looking top lane and what we want to do around there. So to be determined.
Nice.
Actually, I was gonna say, kind of going off what James was saying. I think like in the draft matchup, I think GB has an edge over it, right? Because if let's just say both teams try to mind game each other, right? And then like Plobe ends up staying mid, and then Steven ends up staying top, expecting one or the other to switch, right? And then so you have Steven versus Colin, and then Plobe versus Javi. I think I would take GB's side of that, like 9 times out of 10. And then it could go the opposite way where both teams are like, all right, we're gonna switch lanes, and then Steven goes mid and Plobe goes top, and they don't realize like what's going on. I think Steven and Javi play too many of the same champions, right? And then like it's harder to tell. It's more like hazier in draft whether they're gonna go top or mid. And then if it's like, if you see a Nivea in there, it's probably gonna be Colin mid. I guess Plobe did play Anivia, and we saw how that turned out, but
Yeah.
so I remember that very vividly.
Okay, man.
No, but I do think that GB has like an upper hand in draft for this.
Cool. All right, let's move on to MBB versus AR. Got AR votes across the board. A little awkward. MBB has been pretty cold recently, even though they got their first win a couple weeks back against THD. Yeah, I mean it's a little bit of a stark difference here. Dance, can you tell me why or how MBB has a shot here of taking down AR?
I think it's MBB's very dependent on Nishant still. He needs to have his presence felt in the game. He needs to be in the game and online. I think they need to give Teddy a little more resources. I don't think that this last game against EXO really was the play to just blind pick Malphite top for him. When you're playing red side, take advantage of it. Get some counter picks in your solo lane so you can stabilize them. So I'm hoping that they're learning their lessons from draft and are able to implement them.
All right, yeah, I mean, MVB games have been pretty interesting, and some of the drafts have been pretty good. Some of the drafts have been, not so good. But I think yeah, like they have the pure talent to pop off like GB does. They've got Mina and Elena, two of the best in their roles. Just trying to put everything together and make sure that everybody knows how to play with each other. That's probably the biggest struggle. So let's see if they can do that against AR. AR, on the other hand, has been probably not flying just as high as they did at the start of the season. They've had in their last 3 games, they've had 2 losses. So where do you guys think they are in terms of the table right now? We don't have full data on them considering they haven't played this week against Deep Dive. If they lose this week, they'll actually be 1-3 in their last 4 matches. So there could be a window open here for MVB on a potentially a weakened AR. So what do you think? What do you think about AR's form right now for everybody else? I guess let's say James, AR's form right now. If they lose against Deep Dive too, do you think MBB there could be some blood in the water for MBB to strike upon?
I absolutely think there is, but it's I think alluding back to what you said earlier, MBB's probably got to play through their bot lane, and it's sort of a can Mina and Elena exploit Fire Knight and Barry Allen and see if they can find an edge there, and I think that's going to be given Barry Allen and how good he is, I think that's going to be a tough lane, but I think that's where they've got to play. If they lose to Deep Dive this week, I'm happy because it sets our record, so we're, I think, solidly in second place at that point. But I think it's given just the strength and caliber of the individual talents on AR. I feel even if they're not necessarily as a team super cohesive, they still have just individual talent that can kind of push them over the edge. And who knows, maybe with the Vel'Koz out of the scene, that'll change the landscape of mid lane. But I think it'll be tough. And I think even if they lose to Deep Dive, that doesn't set them up to kind of fall out through the rest of the season.
Gotcha. I think it's also fixed on live. We should test it, the Vel'Koz thing. So
Okay.
it might be a big boon for AR believers everywhere. All right. Next, SB versus Deep Dive. Still don't have full info on Deep Dive, but this is definitely going to be a pretty highlight match this week. Deep Dive, when they look good and then they look strong, they're really strong. And then obviously SB has been tearing it up in the standings so far. I guess the predictions almost all around are all SB except for one solitary vote for Deep Dive from Adam, who can't defend his vote. Yeah, Chase, like, get in Adam's mind for me real quick. Why do you think Deep Dive has a legitimate shot here?
Let's see. So, I mean, Deep Dive's bot lane is like pretty strong. No, I think. I mean, like, no offense, Stance, but I think that Deep Dive's bot lane is stronger than SB's bot lane. Yeah, and like, if they are able to
I
get
wasn't
rolling
even bot lane.
do what?
I left bot lane pretty early.
Oh, I mean, yeah, but I mean, if Deep Dive gets rolling, through their bot, I mean, Dan Lee just dropped like what 21 plus kills or something like that. So, I mean, he clearly like has the mechanics to
We don't talk
completely
about
control
that
a game.
game.
Oh yeah, sorry. I think I heard somewhere that he dropped some like a few kills, but no, I mean, so like Deep Dive can carry through the bot lane, and then also like I mean their jungler and their mid lane is nothing to like scoff at. They're more than capable. So um, there's definitely a chance for Deep Dive. It's not just like a complete shutout like what happened last week with PO and SB. So but it's definitely gonna be really, really tough. It's gonna be a really hard match for Deep Dive. Especially if their bot lane gets behind at any point in time.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, we'll see after this week. Deep Dive has some pretty difficult matches with AR followed by SB, and then I think their last match is against MBB. So I guess by the standings, not so difficult, but we'll see what happens this week against AR. Maybe MBB has some life yet in them. So, all right, finally, let's talk about the last match: THT versus EXO. Probably the most pivotal match of the week, considering whoever wins this probably locks the top 6 slot. Looks like the voters think THD is gonna coin flip heads here, with one vote for EXO, and it's Dismister Satanael, Satanael, whatever himself. So, give us a heads up. Why are you just against the truth?
Yeah, no, I think having played both of these teams, beaten both of these teams, maybe it was a comp difference. Maybe it was just how teams were feeling on that day, but EXO went down with, they went down putting up a fight. THD didn't quite do the same. Game times were the same, and I personally felt that EXO had more fight in them. And so that was sort of where that's where I leaned towards EXO, and I feel that, like, there's areas you can exploit on either side of the matchup and see who can play where. But I, having just played both of them and not really having a horse in the race, think okay, one of the teams I felt was harder to take down. And no offense to THD on that front, but it's just like, yeah, that's the metric, that's the yardstick I have to measure him up against.
Makes sense. Chase and Dan's, anybody have an opinion on this? You guys are THD truthers, so I trust you.
I mean, look, I voted for THD pretty sure every single time, so I'm just gonna keep doing that. I've already locked it
You're
in.
just shooting your shot, basically.
I'm this THD believer, okay? It's something Brian Diff. Look, Brian, you gotta help me out here, okay? I've been saying Brian Diff for like weeks now.
You got
I mean,
pretty close to 50% chance of it working out. So
yeah, that's
Yeah,
true. That's true.
and if it keeps going that way, this time you might actually land it. For me, I think I really hope Mayo can step up. I think he's been a little like just bulking under the pressure, and I really am waiting to see the Mayo that we know that he's capable of playing. The current solo kill leader. Come on, where is that Mayo that can just wreck people's faces over and over again?
Yeah, I mean he's in there somewhere deep inside, so we'll pull it out of him. Yeah, I mean we're looking forward to the EXO match. we've had a pretty like up and down stretch of games. Like in our last 3-4 games, we're 2-2. So like it's been an emotional journey for us. Who knows? But yeah, coming out against EXO, like if we win, we basically secure top 6 spot. We'll be looking to close this one out. And like we've been pretty like our drafts have been like not just like weird, but like a conflict in ideals, I guess, in the last couple of weeks. But I think we're all like on the same page as a team on how exactly we want to draft now. So we'll hopefully start showing it off against EXO here and then against SB in the last week of the season. So yeah, we'll see. Okay, cool. Thank you for all of our predictions. Let's move on to the final part of BTT, which is the standings. I guess we have questions, but let's go standings first, and then we'll hit the questions. We don't have a schedule doc for you right now, but we do have a standings doc. Second breakfast is 6-1, sitting real pretty at the top of the ladder. Got TSC at number 2, Soul number 2, and then at 3, because the game hasn't played yet, we have AR and Deep Dive. One of them will join TSC in the possession of second place, and one of them will go into sole possession of fourth place. Kind of cool. We have a bunch of people at the fifth place spot at 3 and 4. PO, THD, Good Boys, Executive Order. Then Burt's B Gang at 9th, and finally at 10th, Milwaukee Bucks, Baby. So, yep, it'll be the middle of the pack. PO, THD, Good Boys, EXO. That'll be so interesting to watch. One of those head-to-head matchups happening this week, EXO versus THD, and then in the last week, it's PO versus Good Boys. So, yeah, I mean, a lot of those people in that log jam right there at the fighting for bottom spots into the playoffs or into the upper bracket of the playoffs, they'll have a chance to fight it out amongst themselves as they have 2 of those head-to-head matches in the next 2 weeks. So, should be exciting. Okay, final segment. Let's hit some questions from the crowd. We have a couple, so let's get them. The first one from PJ to Satanael. It actually just says Satan. Why do you look so handsome today?
Because I knew you were going to be watching, so I made sure to shower and do my hair beforehand, PJ.
Nice.
And yes, I will gank your lane next time we play.
Sounds like somewhat of an apology, but I didn't hear anything. I was busy staring at his chiseled jawline. So let's move on to the next question. Javier to Dan's. Question for Dan's, of course. Why won't you coach my Rumble team again? Unhappy face.
God. I am overcommitted. That's the answer, honestly. I'm running D&D campaign with BTL people. I'm playing my own D&D campaign on Sundays. I've got BTL, bubble tea time, and work. So it's a little bit much.
All right. Well, sorry, Javier. It's another Rumble L for you. Moving on. At least everybody knew it was coming anyway.
Oh, damn.
Another question from Javier. Question to the cast. Who is your guys' favorite player? I don't really know if that means like just a favorite pro player, maybe favorite NFL player, favorite BTL player. I'm not sure. So, you know what? I'm going to leave it up to you guys to decide that. Chase, who's your favorite player?
Oh, it's got to be Mayo, right?
You
like
didn't even say
every Yeah, it's got to be Mayo. I mean, look how good that guy looks, you know? Like
Ooh.
And then in lane he's solo killing. Oh, I gotta stop there. I gotta stop
All
there.
right, that's some brownie points right there from Chase. What about you, Dance? Who's your favorite player?
Gotta say, I'm gonna go for old school Ray Allen during the Big 3 era of Boston Celtics.
All right, you know what? I can get behind that.
Mr. 3-point shooter, record breaker himself.
I'm not sure if I've ever heard that man say a word, but he was a silent assassin in those days. So, all right, Big 3 Ray Allen. What about you, James? Your favorite player?
I'll pull a different here. We've got a BTL player. We've got a professional sports player. I'm gonna go with a pro league player. Season 4, Samsung White. Imp was an absolute crazy mofo in the bot lane, and that dude played out of his mind. And watching him play AD carry was spectacular. And I wish we could kind of that's a roster that I would pay money to see the 5 of them take the Rift again. But I thought Imp was incredible back in the heyday. So
yeah, I mean, I'm sure the retirement home would take however much money that you have to spend on putting together Samsung's White's roster once again in 2022. But hey, I'm here
8
for
years
it.
later.
I'm here for it. I'd be down to watch a show match. Yeah, give me that roster, then give me I don't know, like the what was that roster? Not TSM, the predecessors to TSM that played in like that MLG Cup as the North American team with like Saint Vicious and Reginald on the same team. Let's see who really takes
Whoa.
God, I can't remember that.
it. All right. Another question from Javier himself. Who will be the first to play Miss Renata? So Renata Glass, or just Slack Glass? Glaze? I don't know, whatever. That one.
Wired, easy peasy.
Ooh.
She is enabled this week. Who's played first? Who's got their match scheduled already? That's the important question.
First.
We're playing Thursday.
Yeah, well,
because
I think you guys.
Oh, we're playing an hour after y'all. We're playing an hour after
SBTD.
So is
I
it
think-
Dan's?
Ooh.
Could be.
Oh my goodness.
Boring.
All I know is I asked everybody to help me out with pick ban to put we put a Google Doc of
And everybody filled in
champs.
Renata Glass.
No. We put together a tier list of everybody's champions and like pocket picks and shit we could pull out if we wanted to be spicy. And this was like 2 weeks before Renata was out. I think her abilities had just been revealed, and Wired went ahead and put her as an A tier and was just like, "Yep, this is gonna be my type of champion." So if not this week, people probably are gonna want to start banning it because he's gonna be this is gonna be Bard 2.0.
Bard
I'll give you a little preview.
Gotcha.
I mean, I can see also Elena playing it. I think she's the one I've seen who's been throwing the matches out more than anybody else. So she's definitely practicing it. So it's definitely on my radar for MBB, as well as honestly Wired Down. That actually makes a lot of sense too.
Nice. All right. From PJ, definitely not a biased question at all, but since we're close to the end of the season compared to the predictions at the beginning of the season, how do you feel about how every team stacks up compared to like their preseason power ranking? For context, TSC was predicted to be pretty
10th.
low in the standings. I think just straight up 10th.
Yeah,
So,
I'm aware.
really unbiased question, but how do you guys feel about where teams stack up compared to their preseason ranking? Number 1 was GB, I believe.
Deep Dev was actually number 1. I just popped it up.
Yeah. GB was number 2 then, something like that.
Yeah, GB is
MBB was
well,
number 3 or something.
if you
all over the board.
shift SB and TSC to the top, I think the other big standout of missed predictions is MBB. So the middle of the pack looks good. That's my response. The middle of the pack was pretty good. Spot on. Good job, guys.
Good job, everyone. Mission accomplished. Considering we have like, I don't know, Dan's has like a 7-9 prediction streak, and Chase has had, I don't know. Are you 7-9, 8-8? I don't know. Obviously, none of us have torn it up. So good job, analysts. I'm glad we pay you the big bucks.
Oh, you guys are getting paid? Wait a second.
Yeah, in gum, surely.
Mouse pads.
Mouse pads, yeah. Something like that.
Pads.
All right, cool. I don't think we have any other questions. So, closing comments. Anybody have anything to say? Thank you for coming, James, Satanael, Dowdle. How was your time here? Did you enjoy it? I hope.
I loved it. It was some good banter, and I like hearing people's thoughts on things. And yeah, excited to have been here, and looking forward to next week.
All right. Thank you, James. Thanks, Dan's. Thanks, Pentamaster. Thank you, all the viewers. I don't know how many you have. Like maybe like 3 people. I don't know.
We have like
thank you, everyone.
17.
Awesome. That's pretty close to 3, honestly. All right. Thank you, everyone. Peace out. Good night. BTT out. Have a good week.